Hey community, welcome back. And if this is your first time here, I'm Dr. Blaire, a doc in clinical psychology. And on this channel, we discuss psychology, inspiration, social justice, and all topics in between. First things first, hit that subscribe and bell button. I need to see you back next week. And of course, stay tuned because we are going to continue the series around weapons that you will need for the battlefield. All right, so as I have mentioned before, the battlefield will be a reoccurring series where myself and a community member will come on and discuss a personal and or professional battle that they are fighting and or have fought before as it relates to the battlefield. And the battlefield is the place that we release, reclaim, and reestablish our justice for our mind, body, soul, spirit, and even for our people, because I believe that as Christ believers, it is an injustice for us to live outside of an alignment with the peace and joy that he has made readily available for us. Now, with that being said, today we are going to talk about two pieces that's actually one weapon, kind of intertwined together, and they work hand in hand with one another, and that is honesty and integrity. Into it. So before we jump into it, I want to let you know I'm going to take a quick glance at my notes here and there and read you some of the things because this has a lot of information and I cannot remember all of the definitions off the top of my head, but I can remember this one. Okay, so let's jump into it. Honesty, it means to tell the truth. Simple as that, right? We've heard this before, but integrity, it speaks to the quality of being honest and having moral principle. It is the state of being whole and undivided, which I think is honestly different, because when we talk about integrity, a lot of times people say it's doing the right thing when no one is around. And I get that, but it's just partial and it's a little subjective, but we're not going to talk about that right now. If we take a closer look at integrity, it means you are unified, you're unimpaired, a lack of corruption with internal consistency. So depending on who it is that's determining what's right versus what wrong, you may see it a bit different on who is being integral and who is being honest or not. And so my standards, they're based off of the word of God. That's my foundation. That's where my moral standards come from. And you may feel different. You may have a different belief system. Nonetheless, we all need honesty and integrity when we enter the battlefield. And I'm sure you're wondering why? Why, Dr. Blaire? Why do we need that? I believe that we need that because as we are working to heal, we are fighting systems, maybe just yourself and not others. You're going to need this because you're right. It is not about them. This is about you. And maybe you're having to look at what you believe a little bit more closely as we have this conversation, because what you stand for, what you believe is morally right, and you stand firm on that wholeheartedly, you have to be unified with your belief. Do not waver. Don't be divided. Don't jump from one side to the other side of the fence. What do we call those people? They wishy-washy, two-faced, and then they get this reputation of not being someone that can be trusted because we feel like they're not being honest. But really, it's just a reflection of the fact that they are not feeling very grounded in what they believe. They're still working in that area. So with all of that being said, we have to figure out, what do we believe? Where do we stand? And wherever you stand, you got to stand there and stand there firmly. Because when we're going into a battle, we know who our enemy is. We know what the mission is. We don't go in there asking questions or trying to figure it out. At that point, it's a little too late. I mean, when you go onto the battlefield, you need to know what your target is. And so when we take a closer look at this, like really look at that. If you don't know who your enemy is, you don't know what your mission is, your enemy can be standing right next to you and you think it's your friend. Come on, somebody. I'm not going to go on that. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But you have to know who your enemy is, and you have to know what your target, what your mission is, what is the end goal. Because if you go in there trying to figure that out, you run the risk of being in danger for plenty of reasons. So you can't have any questions about what that is. And you need to be able to use your weapon of honesty and integrity in order to do it effectively. You have to be able to stand firm on what you believe. Make sense? I hope this is making sense. So this leads to a bigger question. Are you fighting to heal? Are you fighting childhood wounds or long-term grief, fear of success, maybe fear of conflict or insecurities? Whatever you are choosing to battle at that time, you have to have your mind made up before you go into the battlefield. You can't hit the field and start figuring it out then. We just talked about that's dangerous. Have your end goal in mind and do not waver from that. But first, you got to be honest and real upfront with yourself about what you want and what you need before you even go out there. And don't even shy away from it, and give yourself an opportunity to focus on that and the quality of you living in that truth, which honestly requires a great deal of faith. It requires for you to believe in your moral ground. So let's backtrack a little bit. If you're not able to have an honest conversation around what it is that you need and what it is that you want, for example, if you're saying, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to work on these insecurities, I no longer want to be insecure from this particular thing. I want to feel confident in myself. If you kind of shy away from that and you have a difficult time being honest with yourself about what it is that you want and need, then you're going to give yourself the wrong target. Now you're mistargeting and you're focusing on the wrong thing whole time. This is the area you're supposed to be focused on, but you're over here. You've just fought a whole fight that's in a falsehood. It's not real, wrong target, and that's kind of living in a deception because you've sabotaged yourself because you didn't want to be honest. So if you find that you're having difficulty being honest here, sit here, work on that, figure it out until you can be upfront with what your target is and what your end goal is, and then you have the correct target on what to focus on. So as I was mentioning, you want to be able to live in that truth. And honestly, this requires a great deal of faith for you to believe in your moral principle without wavering, to be undivided in something you have struggled, honestly, to obtain and maintain. And what I mean by that is if you have never gotten this, you're working to first to get it. And if you've gotten it before and you lost it, you have to go back out there, obtain it again, and work to get it one more time. Honestly, none of that won't happen unless you give it a try. You got to give it a shot and practice honesty and integrity. It doesn't just come overnight. Like, you have to learn how to use this weapon properly and consistently. It takes practice. And integrity and honesty oftentimes is kind of related to this innate thing that we work on building, but it also is related to a behavior and a skill. And sometimes we have to unteach ourselves to stop doing one thing in order to start doing another. And the same thing is happening here. If you are before previously had difficulty being honest with yourself, you have to practice building up to a point where you can be honest with yourself, therefore moving into integrity. So start practicing this and practice it today. Start today. Be unified with truth and internally consistent with the truth that you believe in. So I really hope that this was helpful for you. I do have a few announcements for you before you go. First things, and I shared a lot of this last week, but the first thing is I am offering an online wellness workshop. Here's the information here, and all of the registration link as well as the promo code will be down in the description box. I'd love to have you there. And also, the Battlefield Conference is on November 5th in Chicago. It is approaching sooner than you know. We will pair both mental health and biblical faith principles. So come and be equipped. I have great speakers that will be there. You know what? I don't want to get ahead of myself because the commercial is going to be dropping real soon, but make sure you're marking your calendars because I want to see your face in the place. Like, comment, subscribe, and share with your community, and make sure that you're sharing with people specifically who are working on improving their honesty and integrity. And remember, before you go, and I see you next week, if I'm great and you're great, then we're a great community.